Very good evening to all of you. So today we are here again to start onwards the aphorisms, our English Organon series. So the last we have done till aphorism 24. The last thing which we have established, and we were talking about the medicines, what kind of medicines to give, whether they should be those medicines which create the similar phenomena as the natural disease is producing, or an opposite phenomena of the natural disease. So Dr. Haneman sir, he has basically given us some few examples where we have established that the best way of giving medicine is by giving the similar phenomena. And we will talk more about this in the coming aphorisms. Till aphorism 30, we will keep talking about this thing and it will give more clarity about this subject. So we will start with the aphorism 25. Hmm. So regarding the same thing, and Dr. Hahnemann is continuing in this aphorism. Now, however, in all careful trials, pure experience, the sole and infallible oracle of the healing art, teaches us that actually that medicine which, in its action on the healthy human body, has demonstrated its power of producing the greatest number of symptoms similar to those observable in the case of disease under treatment, does also, in doses of suitable potency and attenuation, rapidly and permanently remove the totality of the symptoms of this morbid state. So he's saying that all the careful trials, the pure experience which is basically the base of this healing art, the system of the healing art, because only the experience can tell us what things are basically working and what are not. So what does that experience teaches us is that the medicines which have produced symptoms on a healthy human body, which are similar to those observable in the case of disease, which we are treating. So they are similar. And when this medicine or this remedy is given in suitable potency and attenuations, it rapidly and permanently removes the totality of the symptom. It cures the whole morbid state of the patient. That is to say, the whole disease present and change it into health. So whenever the disease is abolished, whenever the disease is exterminated, the only thing which is left is the health. And that all medicines cure. And there is not any exception that this medicine will cure and that will not cure. If it has this kind of state that it produces a similar symptoms on a healthy human body as are seen in the case of disease, then without exception, all the medicines cure. And that all the medicines cure without exception those diseases whose symptom most nearly resemble their own and leave none of them uncured. So here he's talking about that law of similars, like we were doing it in the last session also. That here he's establishing through his experience that law of similars, that only those remedies which can cause a similar kind of artificial disease state. This is in the organ in the next coming aphorisms. Dr. Henneman is going to mention it as an artificial disease state. It is not natural. It is an artificial disease state or a medicinal disease state which is produced by the action of the medicine. So this artificial disease state, whichever medicine has the power to create this artificial medicinal disease state, the symptoms which it brings out in that human being, it has the power to cure the same symptoms. It is very clear, if some object or some substance have some kind of power, it can act in that peculiar way. It cannot act in some other way. If there is arsenic, the poisoning of arsenic, it basically shows that what the arsenic is capable of bringing in the human body. What are the powers of the arsenic? What are the powers of mercury when they are given? So that shows their power. So whatever their power is, it is the same power which is used to cure the patients because they contain that power. They contain that peculiar power. So till aphorism 25, Dr. Hahnemann has trying to establish this thing, and it will be more clearly established in the coming aphorisms. So there is a footnote to aphorism 25. This footnote is basically on his this statement, pure experience. In the first line, where Dr. Hahnemann says, now, however, in all careful trials, pure experience, the sole, infallible oracle of the healing art. So his this footnote is about this word pure experience. That what is pure experience? I do not mean that sort of experience of which the ordinary practitioners of the old school boast. So he's saying that I am not talking about that kind of experience, which usually the practitioners are boasting about, which they are talking about. Like I have 30 years of experience or I have 40 years of experience. He's saying that I am not talking about that kind of experience. After they have for years worked away with a lot of complex prescriptions on a number of diseases which they never carefully investigated, but which, faithful to the tenets of their school, they considered as already described in works of systematic pathology, and dreamed that they could detect in them some imaginary morbific matter. So Dr. Hahnemann is saying that I am not talking about that kind of years of experience where the physicians have never put an effort to carefully investigate either the state of disease or the medicines which they are giving, because they have faithfully kept on going with whatever was written in the books, whatever was given in the pathological books, whatever kind of treatment was told about, and they kept on faithfully doing that thing. They kept on going with that thing without ever seeing the truth behind it, that whether that thing is being helpful for the patient or not. So Dr. Nima is saying that I'm not talking about that kind of experience. It is a very common thing and also disturbing thing that we, whenever we see something written in a book, our mind automatically tells us that this thing is right, that this should be right. And the more a book is old, for example, the religious books, the more old they get, the scriptures, we don't have that courage to question mark the scriptures or question mark the books. The more older they are, the more we have faith in them. There is a joke about this thing, that there was a man, he had an umbrella. He was carrying an umbrella, and it was written on the umbrella, gift from sister, gift from a sister. So he was going and he met a friend on the way. So he said that, where did you get that umbrella? He said that it is a gift from the sister. He said, but I know you from past 30 years. You don't have any sister. He said that, I don't know, but it is written on the umbrella that it is a gift from sister. So there might be some sister. He said that when I was getting out of the restaurant, I found this umbrella there. So I thought some of my sister, which I don't know about, might have put it there. So it is a joke about that we always believe what is written. We, I also say, now this also comes to the organon part. I will not say that organon, trusted blindly. No, organon is just a written word everywhere. Whichever book you pick up, they are just words. Making them true is basically our duty. Duty in the sense we try those things which are written there in the book. For example, there is a book on the recipe of some dish. The chef or the author has given a very precise mechanics on how things are to be done. And in the end, it is given that it will taste like this. So we put the whole faithful effort in doing that thing. And at the end, if we find, if we find that it is the exact same thing which is written, so then that becomes true. So the experience makes the words true or false for us. But that experience should be based upon our 100% efforts. Now, when I started talking about Organon, or when more precisely, when I started speaking about the Organon, like from past 1.5 or 2 years, I think I am taking these classes on Organon. It was that point in the time when I had these experiences with all these kind of things. And I found it to be, because whenever I'm talking about the Organon, I'm not talking about these words, I'm talking about my experience about this thing, what I have experienced, what I know about this thing. There is two kind of the things. One is the information. This is the information which have been passed by Dr. Hahnemann to the physicians. This is not knowledge. There is a difference between information and knowledge. Knowledge, it only becomes after you have experienced it. Then it becomes knowledge. Knowledge is something which you know. Knowledge. The things which you know, not the things which you remember, not the things which you have read, not the things which are written somewhere. That is not knowledge. If you read a book, I don't think that by reading a book, you or any one of us can become knowledgeable. Yes, we will have a lot of information which we can talk about without experience. So knowing is something different. Knowing comes from one's own experience. So when I'm going to the camps in the India or in the Thailand or in the Brazil, the doctors who are sitting there who have seen the cases before and then they are seeing the follow up. There is an experience which gets into the mind, which goes even beyond mind into our subconscious. That experience basically tells us what is true, because we have this innate intelligence which is working inside us. What we have in our brain is more of you know the things which we have gathered from the world. But even before we were born, or when we were born, we had this innate intelligence. That innate intelligence always tells us that this thing is true, although the mind may put a barrier to it, that no, then you have to forget everything which you have learned. But the inside, that innate knowledge will always tell, nay, this thing is true, we see this thing, we have seen this thing. So Dr. Hahnemann is saying that I am talking about that kind, I am not talking about this kind of experience which is coming from the information or ascribe to them some other hypothetical internal abnormality. They always saw something in them, but knew not what it was they saw. And they got results from the complex forces acting on an unknown object that no human being, but only a God could have unraveled. So they are giving the medicine on some imaginary morbific matter, which is inside some bacteria, some virus, or sometimes, or most of the time, it is not known. But the complex forces of the medicines which have been which are being prescribed on this unknown object, only the God could have unraveled that thing, results from which nothing can be learned and no experience gained. So this kind of, we cannot gain any kind of experience from this kind of practice, and nothing new can be learned out of it. 50 years of experience of this sort is like 50 years of looking into a kaleidoscope filled with unknown colored objects and perpetually turning out. thousands of ever changing figures and no accounting for them. So he's saying that 50 years of this experience is like you are just looking into a kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope is an object in which, the colors are changing, the shapes are changing, but you cannot make out anything, any useful thing out of it. You don't know what is happening. You can just keep looking at it without taking any action, without doing anything about it, without making any meaning out of it. So he's saying that 50 years of even such kind of experiences like this, that you cannot make anything out of it. There is nothing useful which has come out of it. So he's saying that I'm not talking about that kind of experience. I'm talking about that kind of experience from where something new has developed, from where something has developed which is closer to the truth. Because the experience is the teacher here. So next aphorism is aphorism 26. So after that, establishing that similia similibus currenter, that the similars should be cured by the similars. Then we come to the next law, which is used in homeopathy. I will not say that this is homeopathic law, although we it is the homeopathy which basically uses this law to for this curative mechanism. But this law can be seen in nature. It is always seen in nature. We'll take some examples of it. But this law is always seen in the nature. This is the homeopathic law of nature of the therapeutics. This depends on the following homeopathic law of nature, which was sometimes indeed vaguely surmised. So there was some vaguely acceptance of this in the old books, but not hitherto fully recognized. It was not recognized and it was never used before, but not hitherto fully recognized, and to which is due every real cure that has ever taken place. So, any real cure that has ever taken place, naturally, accidentally, any kind of, that has been based on this law of nature, because only this therapeutic law or the law of nature can basically establish a real cure. So what is that law is? A weaker dynamic of action is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one. If the later means the stronger one, while differing in the kind, is very similar to the former in its manifestations. So it is very important to understand this thing. A weaker dynamic of action, whenever there is a weaker dynamic of action, any dynamic of action which is weaker, it is permanently extinguished. It does not say that it is palliated, it is suppressed. No, it is permanently extinguished. It is gone, extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one. So there is a stronger dynamic of action which pushes away, which permanently extinguishes, which permanently cures a weaker dynamic of action if there is a condition. If the later means the stronger one, although differing in kind, means it is coming from a different kind of source. The source is different, but the manifestations, the action which it is producing on the living organism is very similar to the weaker one, to the former one. So the action is completely similar, but it is coming from a different kind of source. So we'll take some examples which Dr. Henneman has given in the footnote. Thus are cured both physical affection and moral maladies. So by this thing, all the physical affection and moral means mental affections, all are actually cured. How is it that in the early dawn, the brilliant Jupiter vanishes from the gaze of the beholder? So Dr. Henneman is uh, trying to answer this thing in a question, that in the morning, we were seeing till morning that there was a star, Jupiter, which was very brilliant, shining. And in the morning, it we cannot see it. So how it happens? It happens by a stronger similar power acting on his optic nerve, the brightness of the approaching day. So Jupiter was also sending us a weaker dynamic affection, a light. But then when the sun comes up, it sends us a more stronger dynamic affection. So even the Jupiter's light was acting on our optic nerve, sun's light is also acting on our optic nerve. But because the sun's light is more stronger, it has a more stronger action on the optic nerve. So we cannot see the Jupiter. So coming from the different source, but producing the similar kind of manifestation, producing the similar kind of action. In situations replete with fetid odors, wherewith is it usual to soothe effectually the offended olfactory nerve? He said that you go to some locality, there is some fetid odor coming from there. So how you usually uh, soothe it, that affection of the fetid bad odor on your olfactory nerve? With snuff. Earlier the people used to snuff. Snuff is a very strong this it strongly sensitizes the olfactory nerve. It has a strong affection on the olfactory nerves. So with snuff, that affects the sense of smell in a similar but stronger manner. So it also affects your sense of smell but in a stronger manner. No music, no sugared cake, which act on the nerves' other senses, can cure this olfactory disgust. So this olfactory disgust cannot be cured, or it cannot be taken away. Even if you listen to the music or you eat some sugared cake, the things which are acting on the other nerves in a different way, they cannot cure this olfactory disgust. They cannot cure this uh, the disgust, the bad feeling which this bad odor was producing in us. How does the soldier cunningly stifle the piteous cries of him who runs the gauntlet from the ears of the compassionate bystanders? He said that how when they go to the war, the soldiers, they basically stifle the piteous, like when they are going, they are the bystanders who are standing, the family members and this thing. So they are crying, they have this pity, they have this compassion that these people are going for a war, they might come back, they might not come back. Even if they come back, what kind of condition they would be in? So he's saying that how they basically stifle it, how cunningly, how cleverly they stifle it is by the shrill notes of the fife. Fife is a small shrill flute which was basically used earlier when the soldier used to go to war, commingled, mixed with the roar of the noisy drum. You all might have seen in the movies or this thing when the of the about the old time, they would use this drum and they will use the flute many times in the Scotland and all those. They have this bagpiper, big bagpipers when they would go to the war. Purpose that the cries of the other people or that the things which they are saying, they do not reach because the flute and the drum, they are making a loud noise. So that weaker affection is basically extinguished by this strong dynamic affection. And the distant roar of the enemy's cannon. So when there is a cannon shooting some balls, you know, the iron balls, the enemy cannons, how was that sound basically, kind of that it does not produce any fear in the army by the loud boom of the big drum. So they would start beating a big drum so that the sound of the cannon, it does not reach the ears of the soldiers. For neither the one nor the other would the distribution of a brilliant piece of uniform nor a reprimand to the regiment suffice. Because at that time, if the soldiers they listen to that loud boom of the cannons, even if there is some officer in a uniform or if they reprimand it or they even threaten the soldiers, it would not work because it is not the same kind of dynamic affection. In like manner, mourning and sorrow will be effaced from the mind by the account of another, and still greater cause of sorrow happening to another, even though it be a mere fiction. Many times when people are sad or depressed, And if they watch a sad movie, which has more greater effect on them, the sadness vanishes. So even in the fiction, even if it is a fiction, even if it is a story, it will take away the sadness. But if a person is sad, he would not have any interest in watching the comedy because it does not produce the same dynamic affection. He has no interest in watching the action movies because it does not produce any kind of the same kind of dynamic affections. The injurious consequences of too great joy. If someone had a surprise or there was something which was unexpected which has happened to them and it was very joyous thing, will be removed by drinking coffee, which produces an excessively joyous state of mind. So coming from a different source, coming from a different kind, but producing the same kind of action. So the coffee, it will remove the injurious consequences of great joy. That is why the coffea, our remedy coffea, it basically works in this ailments from joy, ailments from surprise, happy surprise. Nations like the Germans. Now here Dr. Hahnemann is talking about that time's history of the Germany. Nations like the Germans, who have for centuries been gradually sinking deeper and deeper in soulless apathy and degrading serfdom. So he felt at that time, or maybe before, that the Germany was sinking deeper in the apathy. There is no soul left. There is no dignity left in the people, and they are becoming more selfish, more, you know, thinking of them first. Must first be trodden still deeper in the dust by the Western conqueror. Dr. Newman is saying that they needed to be more trodden. Trodden means that they have to be pushed more down by some Western conqueror. From the West, some armies, some kingdom should come who, you know, trod them more deeper until their situation became tolerable. And they should be done like this until their situation becomes intolerable. Their mean opinion of themselves was thereby overstrained and removed. And then their mean opinion, their selfishness, their things about this thing were over, and then they were removed about Germany, and they again became alive to their dignity as men. And then, for the first time, they raised their heads as Germans. So it is something from the history which he is basically quoting that this thing has happened at that time, and some conqueror from the west he has came and he has downtrodden Germany and Germans at that time, and then they came to realize about their dignity. So these are few examples. We can see these examples in our day-to-day lives, but I think it is more than sufficient which Dr. Hahnemann has basically mentioned, because most of the things we have related to, which we have seen, which we have, you know, gone through. So this law of nature, it is basically working everywhere. The main thing is to understand this thing, that any weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished by the stronger affection, which should be either it is all coming from a different source, but it is producing the same manifestation as the previous or the former one. So this is a very important piece of information, a very important law, which is basically used in the homeopathic prescription, because this is the base of the similia similibus currentum. But in the coming aphorisms, Dr. Hahnemann will also he will take us step by step to all the queries, because at this point then the comes that okay, the other medicines can also be used like this, giving the greater affection and removing. The main thing it comes is that it has to produce the similar manifestation. It has to produce the similar manifestation. So we will go through 3 or 4 examples in the upcoming aphorism till 40, 41. So the curative power of medicines, therefore, depends on their symptoms, similar to the disease, but superior to it in strength. So how the medicines are working? Now we come to that part. How the medicines are working, because they have similar action. They're producing a similar action as the action which is being produced by the weaker dynamic of action, the natural disease, but they are superior in strength. Why they are superior in strength? Because we can control the dosage of it. We can control the dose, how much dose we have to give. So that makes it more superior in strength, so that each individual case of disease is most surely, radically, rapidly, and permanently annihilated and removed only by a medicine capable of producing in the human system, in the most similar and complete manner, the totality of its symptoms, which at the same time are stronger than the disease. So this is the reason why, when the medicines are given by this way, similia similibus currenter, similar cures similar, when we give this way, when we give a medicine which produces the same kind of symptoms which the disease is producing, it basically permanently, surely, radically annihilates and removes the disease from the humans or the organisms. This is the reason. As this natural law of cure manifests itself in every pure experiment and every true observation in the world, the fact is consequently established. So this natural law of cure, it is basically showing itself in every pure experiment which is done. And any true observation in the world, like I said, that even if the cure was accidental, even if the cure was, uh, like happen naturally, it has to happen by this way. There is no other way. It matters little what may be scientific explanation of how it takes place. So here Dr. Hanuman is saying that it matters little. It does not matter that to give a scientific explanation of how it takes place, how the cure takes place, or how the medicine basically cures the natural disease. It does not have any kind of importance knowing this thing. But still, he will give the explanation which seems most probable. And I do not attach much importance to the attempts made to explain it. Why he's saying this thing is that when someone tries to explain some observation, when someone tries to explain some experience, the science behind it, sometimes the world is not ready to hear to the its science, or sometimes we are not ready, or we don't have much things at our hand to explain that thing, that how it is working. But we can say that it is working. Like from so many years, uh, homeopathic doctors, they have been giving, good cures, good results. So everyone knew that homeopathy is working, but how it working, how it works, the science had not advanced at that level to explain how it works. Now it has advanced. After the quantum physics, we are at that stage, we are at that point where we can explain that how the dilution works, how the attenuation works, how the medicine works. Because here we are out of the physical physics, the mechanical physics. So now we can explain, but if you go 20 years behind, 25 years behind, 30 years behind, when someone said that homeopathy is a placebo and this thing and that thing. So at that time, the science had not advanced to that level to explain this thing. But it cannot take away the fact that even at that time, even at Dr. Hahnemann's time, 300 years ago, the homeopathy was working. It was giving results. There are so many cases of different doctors from 1800s, 1900s, who 1700s also, who are the who basically show us that the homeopathy was giving or curing people even at that time. So he's saying that I do not attach much importance to the attempts made to explain it. But the following view seems to commend itself as the most probable one, as it is founded on the premises derived from the experience. He said that I do not give much importance to how it takes place, but still I'm giving a probable view of how it happens, because what I have experienced, what I have seen, according to the things which I know, this becomes a most probable view that how this therapeutic law of cure, this natural law of cure, it basically works. So as every disease, not strictly belonging to the domain of surgery. So he's saying that the disease which basically strictly belong to the domain of surgery, he's not talking about those, but except that all the diseases, as every disease depends only on a peculiar morbid derangement of our vital force and sensation and functions. So like we have done in the earlier aphorisms, that what is a disease? It is basically a morbid derangement of our vital force, which is shown in the sensation and functions of the organism. When a homeopathic cure of the vital force dearranged by the natural disease is accomplished. So whenever a cure is accomplished, a homeopathic cure is accomplished of the vital force by the administration of a medicinal agent selected on account of an accurate similarity of the symptoms. Homeopathic means we have chosen a remedy which was similar to the symptoms of the disease. A somewhat stronger, similar artificial morbid affection. Okay. So this medicine, it created a stronger, similar artificial morbid affection. Similar affection, whenever the dose was administered, a homeopathic dose was given on the account of the similarity of the symptoms it produces. Because whenever a medicine is given, it will act. It will act regardless of anything, because it is meant to act. So it is somewhat stronger, it is similar, and it is artificial. Artificial because we are giving it, is brought into contact with, and as it were pushed into the place of the weaker. So because it was stronger, it was similar, coming from a different, somewhat different kind, coming from a different source, but it was strong and similar. So it basically replaced the weaker, similar, natural morbid irritation. So there were similar symptoms of the natural disease. There were similar symptoms of the artificial disease, but this was stronger. So it basically pushed the weaker one away and established itself there. So natural morbid irritation against which the instinctive vital force now merely, though in a stronger degree, medicinal disease. So it was pushed according to the law of law of cure or law of nature. The weaker dynamic of action was pushed by this stronger dynamic of action, which was stronger but similar. So the pushed and it was completely extinguished. And now the vital force is just diseased medicinally. So here also comes our concept of homeopathic aggravations. Why, when a right remedy is given, why in the chronic diseases, when we give a remedy which is constitutionally simillimum, why it aggravates the symptoms? Because it is producing a stronger artificial morbid affection. So because it is stronger, the symptoms which will come after the administration will be stronger. So we take it as a positive sign that okay, the disease, the some symptoms have basically aggravated. So that means the natural disease is now pushed away, and the medicinal disease is basically placed in the instead of the natural disease, and natural disease is extinguished. So now the vital force is basically only diseased medicinally, only diseased artificially. So now what happens is that this instinctive vital force, which is medicinally diseased now, is then compelled to direct an increased amount of energy, because it takes it as an attack, an increased attack. So the vital force has to increase its energy and compel the, uh, kind of control the artificial disease which is coming. But on the account of the shorter duration of the action of the medicinal agent, that now morbidly affects it. Whenever, now this is the beauty of this thing, when Whenever you give any medicine to anyone, any kind of medicine, allopathic, homeopathic, ayurvedic, or any kind of medicinal substance. For example, you someone is having pains and you give a painkiller. So the painkiller basically have an action, have a duration of action. Like it will act for 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. Then the vital force will start taking the control over because the medicinal action is decreasing. So the vital force now has more energy to bring out all those symptoms which it already had. Okay? So I'm talking just giving an example. So it is this thing with the medicinal agent that with the time, after some duration, the action is going to decrease. So now this vital force is basically only medicinally diseased because it has pushed away the natural affection which was there. So the action will start reducing because it is a medicinal action. It is a medicinal action, so it is going to start decrease. So when this is decreasing, the vital force, which is now becoming stronger, and it is free from the natural disease, it will take over the whole economy. The vital force soon overcome this. It will overcome it as it was in the first instance relieved from the natural morbid affection. So it is now at last freed from the substituted artificial medicinal one. So first, the medicinal one basically freed the vital force from natural morbid affection, and now the decreasing action of the medicinal one and the increasing energy of the vital force, it is also freed from the artificial medicinal disease and hence is enabled again to carry on healthily the vital operations of the organism. So this in short is how the medicine works on a dynamic plane. This highly probable explanation of the process rests on the following axioms. So in the coming aphorism, he's saying that I will tell you about more about this, explanation that how it basically acts. So it is very simple thing when you look at to it that we have established that all the disease which is happening is at the dynamic plane. It is a dynamic affection. Aphorism 11, that dynamic vital force can only be affected by a dynamic affection. It can only get diseased if something is working on it dynamically. So next is that this dynamic affection can be removed and is removed, as we can see in the other parts of the law of nature, is removed by a stronger dynamic affection. We have seen this thing, but it has to act in a similar way. That is a condition. It should be stronger and it should act similarly. So this dynamic affection, which came naturally as a disease in the body, in the organism, and it affected the vital force, was basically removed by a similar, stronger artificial dynamic affection, which was produced by the medicine, by the remedy, which had similar action. And when this is removed, only the medicinal artificial disease remains, which because of the duration of the action, like I told you, every medicine has a duration of action. Natural disease does not have a duration of action. It keeps on increasing, increasing and increasing. But the medicinal disease, it has a duration of action. It will act for some time and it starts decreasing and the vital force starts becoming more stronger, which overpowers the whole economy again. And as the natural disease is removed, the medicinal disease is removed, only thing which is left behind is the health. So this is in short an explanation which answers us that how the cure basically takes place in the body. So there is an aphorism to this footnote. The short duration of the action of the artificial morbific forces. Artificial morbific forces means the remedies, medicines, which we term medicines, makes it possible that although they are stronger than the natural diseases, they can yet be much more easily overcome by the vital force than can the weaker natural diseases, which solely in consequence of the longer, generally lifelong duration of their action. So Dr. Newman is explaining this thing, that the short duration of the action of the medicines, that medicines have short duration of action. So it is easy for the vital force to overcome this thing because there is short duration of the action as compared to the weak natural disease, because the natural disease is coming from some different kind of source which is continuously producing, which is continuously giving an influx. We are not continuously giving influx of the medicine. Medicine was just given once. But the SORA, the syphilis, the psychosis, these miasms, they're continuously giving the influx. So that is why that continuous influx of the dynamic affection, the vital force cannot overpower. Even the natural diseases are weaker, even if the natural diseases are weaker, but there is a continuous influx, can never be vanquished and extinguished by it alone. So the vital force cannot vanquish or extinguish these natural diseases alone until the physician affects the vital force in a stronger manner by an agent that produces a disease very similar but stronger, to wit a homeopathic medicine, which when taken or smelt is as it were forced upon the unintelligent instinctive vital force. So it can never be extinguished or vanquished by the vital force itself until some physician affects the vital force in a stronger manner. And how it should be affected? By the homeopathic medicine, by a medicine which basically is strong and similar to the natural disease which is going on in the body. And this medicine is basically, this action is forced upon the unintelligent but instinctive. The vital force acts more by instinct and substituted in the place of the former natural morbid affection, by which means the vital force then remains freely, merely medicinally ill. And when this strong medicinal agent, the action of the medicinal agent, it basically substitutes, it comes in the place of the natural morbid affection, the vital force only remains medicinally ill, but only for a short time, because the action of the medicine, the time in which the medicinal disease is excited by it, runs its course, does not last long. Because the action of the medicine is not going to last long because there is no influx going on. It was just given once and we stopped it. That is why we should not keep repeating it, not keep adding to the influx. Otherwise, the vital force will become medicinally diseased. So we have just given one influx and we have stopped. We have stimulated and stopped. But in natural disease, there is a continuous influx of the dynamic affection from the SORA, from the basic fundamental causes. So the cures of disease of many years duration by the occurrence of smallpox and measles, both of which run a course of only a few weeks, are processes of the similar character. So he said that naturally also he's given an example that we have seen that there was a disease of many years of duration. And once the patient got some smallpox or measles naturally, and they run a course for few weeks, the whole disease was gone. Even the disease of so many years, because they run a similar character, are processes of a similar character, which the natural disease will, he will put more light on this thing in the coming aphorism, where he will give examples of this accidental cures or naturally the things where they have happened with this law of cure, nature. So today we will stop at aphorism 29. Next Wednesday, we will continue from aphorism 30. So any questions you have regarding this, any kind of confusion, any kind of questions, you can always send the queries and we can take it up in the next session. Because many times, so many times it is seen, what I have is that we don't ask questions that out of some kind of shyness or out of some kind of fear, or even sometimes, it does not seem right. But every question is right. Every question is right. And I'm very happy if someone asks some questions, because from there we can talk about some other things also. And uh, questions sometimes incite some kind of idea in your mind which you would not have shared otherwise, but that question has stimulated something and you can share some kind of experience of this thing. So basically the questions, you have any, and they're always welcome. You can send it to the if you're from Thailand, you can send it directly also. You can send it to Dr. Jonkol also. You can send it to the admin also from India or from Brazil. Also, you can send in the group to the admin. I am also there. You can send me directly if there is any question. So this part of the philosophy of homeopathy, it is very important for us to understand, because when you're putting a homeopathic dose in the mouth of the patient, when you know this thing, that what is going to happen after I'm going to put this dose, you know it gives you a contact with the kind of the whole phenomena, what is going to happen. You understand that how the things, like we talked about this law, and we talked about the homeopathic aggravation, that why homeopathic aggravation happens, because everyone knows that the homeopathic aggravation is happening and happening and happening, because that was told us that once you give a homeopathic remedy, it will bring out some symptoms. But it is not in every state that it will bring out the symptoms. And what kind of symptoms should it bring out? If it is producing some kind of new symptom, some kind of opposite symptom, that tells us that medicine is wrong. It has to produce some similar symptoms. The aggravation should be of the similar symptoms, because only then we can state that thing, or we can understand that thing, that the natural disease is being replaced by the artificial disease. Natural disease is being replaced by the medicinal disease. If the symptoms are similar, which are aggravated. If someone had headache, next after giving medicine in the night, he said, the doctor, the headache increased. I knew you told me that not to take medicine, and I have not taken any medicine, but it increased in the night. Yes, coming in the morning, it was completely gone. There was no sign of the, and I felt that I never had any headache. These are the words which the patients will use. And even that feeling of the headache is not even there. Even that memory of the headache, it appears to be, that to be a false information. It's that deep the homeopathic medicine works when given in a right way. So that it takes even the memory of that thing away from the patient. It's a good thing. We should not be, this thing by the painful memories of our diseases which we had. It takes even away that feeling of what kind of headache was there. So that way we know that yes, the medicine has acted in a homeopathic way, in the way that it should. So this philosophy, this understanding how the things are working, this gives you more insight into the patient, about what you have to look for before giving the medicine and after giving the medicine. What you should expect will increase, so that you can tell the
Yes.
patient that these things might increase, so don't worry,
Yes,
it might
doctor,
increase.
can I ask some question?
Yes, please.
How
Yes.
can I consider how long I will wait for whether it is aggravation or it's getting worse? Does the medicine work? How to consider the time, the duration, a night or a day?
Hmm. So if the diseases are of long standing, the first thing is that the aggravation, they basically depend upon your dose. Many times, because we have that material notion about the medicine in our mind, we tend to give larger doses. That is where, sometimes very strong aggravations happen, which the patient cannot bear. So the first recommendation is, start with the smallest dose, very small pills, of medicine, 2 pills, 3 pills at the most, give those things. So it will produce only that much aggravation which is needed. The first thing. Now, how long the aggravation lasts? It does not last usually very long, about a day, about 2 days. In some cases, when the disease is of long standing, it can be for 4 or 5 days. But regarding the homeopathic aggravation, there's a very beautiful thing. Very beautiful thing. The symptom, Dr. Kent also writes about it and this thing, that the symptoms are aggravated, but the patient feels better. For example, like I told you, the patient had a headache, but he didn't complain about that headache in the night. He was able to tolerate that thing, although the pain was more. He had seen in the past that even the less pain he was not able to tolerate. But this time the pain was more and he was able to tolerate it. So this is a very unique situation which tells us about, and it has been seen so many times I have seen in my clinic, that the patients, like I give the medicine and tell them to come after 15 days or 20 days. Even today, I talked with a patient from Canada and she was saying the similar thing. So I will talk about the patient which I talked today. So she called me after 1 month because I told her to call me after 1 month. So I asked her, she had this problem of cervical pains and migraines, and she had this, you say, gluten allergy. So when all this thing used to come together, she used to have very strong vomitings and nausea which would last many, many days, even not relieved by this antiemetics or this thing. And she would feel very weak, even that she was not able to get up in the morning. They did not have any desire to get up in the morning. She felt so tired. So today, after 1 month, she talked to me that, doctor, I am feeling very, very, very better after the medicine. Even I traveled to UK, United Kingdom, to meet my sister for 10 days or 1 week. And she said that even I had eaten outside food, I have not worried that whether it had gluten or no gluten in it. I was completely fine. So I said that, okay. So then she said that, but initially when I took your medicine, when I started with it, for 2 days, I had very bad nausea. Although vomiting was not there, but I had a very, very bad nausea. So I said that, why didn't you called me? She said, somehow I thought that this is a very small thing. It will go away. It will go away on its own. I didn't told her that this will happen to her. I didn't told her. She was not mentally ready for it. And she is usually very anxious person. So she said that, doctor, I don't know, but I was feeling well. I had nausea, but I was working. Usually when this nausea happens, I would not work. My whole concentration, my whole this thing is on the this nausea, that what to take something, some lemon or something like this, to not eat any food or something. She said that, "Look, I don't know what happened, but this time, although nausea was there, but I was able to work." Which remedy is given? And it is not important which remedy is given. Whatever I will not tell remedy like this. Maybe we will discuss someday that case, because if I will tell the remedy, then it will become in someone's mind that this is the remedy for this kind of disease or this thing. So we'll talk about the remedy someday. I'm talking about the incidents which we have to go through, which we have to understand this thing. So there is the aggravation of symptoms, and then there is the aggravation of disease. Aggravation of disease, the patient cannot tolerate it. But homeopathic aggravation of symptoms, you will be amazed to find many times there are so severe pain and the patient does not complain to you about it for many days. The doctor, I was able, like I had a patient who had a sciatica, very bad sciatica, and after giving the medicine, somewhat this thing increased, the pain increased, but she didn't told me for 15 days, although it remained for 2 3 days, but then it started decreasing. But she said that I had this feeling that everything is okay, I can walk even with the pain, I was able to do my work. So again, I cannot say much about it because it will be a bigger topic when then we have to go into the more and deeper parts of the how it happens. Maybe Dr. Hahnemann, when he goes at that, will go at that aphorism, he will tell you automatically because there is an aphorism around I think 251 or 252 where he explains this thing. So this is a very amazing thing to see about the homeopathic aggravation, and you will see this thing in acutes also and in chronic diseases also, that there is a change in the way the patient is now looking at the disease, at the life. Many times we see that even after taking the medicine, the stars, the fortune, the destiny of the patient, it also changes because they start seeing the life which they have been going through in a very different way. In a very different way. So usually this aggravation, if the dose is small, it lasts 2, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days max to max, but it will keep on decreasing after taking medicine. If there is no homeopathic aggravation, is the medicine? Yes, many times the aggravation is not. If the patient is robust, not much careful, he will not even complain about the aggravation. Even then, the medicine can be correct. But if there is some aggravation, it gives us more confidence that yes, now the medicine is complete. Even that it can be correct. It is not that it will not be correct medicine. Okay, if it has produced an action, if it has produced an amelioration, and the amelioration is continued, going on and on and on and on and on, then the medicine is right. No problem with that. Then only this means that your dose and potency, everything was perfect. Your medicine dose and potency is perfect. So the patient does not had much homeopathic aggravation, or the homeopathic aggravation was so subtle that the patient did not felt much about it. Okay. So any other questions you can send me, you can message me, or you can ask next time. So with that, I will take your leave. Thank you very much for
Thank you, Doctor.
understanding this thing. Yes, please.
No, I just say thank you for tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good night to all of you. And thank you. Thank you very much.